there's a channel on YouTube. Oh, there are various channels on YouTube, but there's one in particular which come up with a load of what if scenarios, because that's how expansive Star Wars is. You can have a series of what ifs. And
Yeah.
they came up with a video which was what if the younglings killed Anakin?
Yeah, that's
And I was like,
and that just made me think of that great line of Master Skywalker, there's too many of us. What are you gonna do? I just love the image of that. Him like, what? And them all just igniting lightsabers.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Are you not entertained?
Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
It's not the car, it's a silly goofy boy.
Well, good movies.
Hello and welcome to Well Good Movies, the podcast that gives you the topics we're discussing and the movies worth watching. I'm your host, David Oscar, and today we are celebrating May the 4th. It is the annual day for Star Wars fans to rejoice and watch all the films again, do all the things that they love about Star Wars. So we thought, what better time to celebrate Star Wars than when we're in lockdown? I'm here with my usual co-host via the internet. Craig, where are you this week?
to the viewers at home who have no idea where I am, I'm actually on Coruscant at the Jedi Temple learning.
You've just set up an exact replica of your room on Coruscant.
Yeah, complete with the usual background of the Tokyo T-shirt. I as much as the Jedi don't believe in having physical attachments to things, I feel that having something to remind me of Earth is probably a good idea. Just so I don't necessarily fall to the dark side all that much, for your sake.
Some people do see Jedi as a religion as well. I was going to say about years ago when you did like a sort of stand-up routine about praying to Coruscant. So is it just that you've now fulfilled that prophecy? You've followed the Jedi religion and now gone to the place.
Well, I'm still working on getting the golden statue of Yoda just so that I can meditate under. But who knows?
Basically, you're just going to loot the Jedi Temple when you're there.
That is not the Jedi way.
We are also joined by a very big Star Wars fan. He also writes for our website, Fresh Take, and is a writer and director all the way from Ireland. It is Niall Glynn. Hello, Niall.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's no problem. Like I said, we just need as many Force-sensitive people in this podcast as we can for this great celebration.
I'm certainly sensitive.
So, like I said, you do a lot of different things. You're a writer, director, doing lots of things during lockdown. How is it over there in Ireland? You said earlier you're stranded. How true that is?
Like Craig, who's living the Jedi life, I'm living the Luke Skywalker life. I'm self-isolating on an island. Yeah, I'm just doing lots of college projects at the moment. I'm doing some game streams for an Irish website as well.
Okay.
And a few reviews. So, yeah, keeping myself busy.
And you're usually on Twitter like a lot, making lots of cool shares and stuff like that. I saw earlier you had a funny point out of that Twitter page, was it, where it said our favorite director is ... which you funnily said they didn't finish. I was then intrigued. What would your answer to that be?
Oh my God. That's the hardest thing I've been asked in a long time. Quarantine or no quarantine.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh.
So
it really depends on the mood, I think.
Yeah. Well, for clarification, it was discussing film, put the best director of all time, which you rightly put. Why didn't they finish the tweet? Weird, which I thought was very, very good.
If you do want to be entertained, I would advise clicking on the link and seeing just some of the answers.
Oh yeah.
So bizarre. I'm a big, I like the Marvel films a lot, but when some people say who's the best director of all time and you see the Russo bros, they've directed like 5 films, including You, Me and Dupree. Are they the greatest of all time, guys? Please.
Very true. And when it comes to Star Wars, what was your history with Star Wars? What makes you such a big fan, would you say?
Okay. Yeah. I think back in the day, I saw the original trilogy on TV. This was around the time, I think, the special editions were coming out.
Okay.
And I was pretty young. I had no idea what was going on, but I love robots. I always have. So whenever they're on screen, I was incredibly entertained. And that made me a fan. And then when the prequels were coming out, bizarrely, I wasn't interested at all until Revenge of the Sith. Because my tiny baby brain didn't understand what a prequel was. So I was like, how does this make sense? How is Anakin Skywalker back? And why is he a baby?
I was going to say there's not enough robots, but if anything, the prequels have got more robots in them.
Well, what's funny is my parents actually rented Attack of the Clones when we were on holiday once. And as a child, I couldn't watch it. I just didn't have the attention span. I still don't.
Yeah.
But then the scene with the robot factory came on, and I was like, hold the phone. This has become a 5-star movie. And they're embarrassing to say now. And yeah, I was a huge fan up until 2008. And I fell out with it. I think I was around 13. That's the kind of age where you realize the prequels were kind of nonsense.
And the exact year that a certain movie we'll be talking about later came out, I think.
Oh, yeah. And around that time, I saw that announced. And I was like, oh, this isn't for me anymore. And then years later, I got back into it. I think when the excitement for Force Awakens was starting up. And I still am. Just been bumps in the road constantly, but...
Yeah, it's interesting because I follow quite a few different Star Wars channels on YouTube. And so they interact with a lot of fans as well. And whereas obviously they do it as a living and they probably would have had that connection ever since. But then even with them, I suppose they do have a lot of gaps. And they talk about that with their fans and stuff. So it is a common thing for people to, like you said, have watched the prequels, fall out of it. The Force Awakens brings them back. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. And you get a lot of reoccurring themes. And that's why I think at the moment, a lot of people who grew up with the Clone Wars, who grew up with the prequels, are quite apologetic or, talk about why they like those films. So that seems to have then quieted down. And then you got all these people who then maybe don't like the sequels, which can be quite loud. But like I said, you'll have the people who are growing up with them now, which will become more vocal in the future. So it's all about generations with Star Wars. And that's what's interesting about it in the films and the fan base. So our main topic today is Star Wars spin-offs. We want to talk about everything outside of the movies, all the weird and wonderful little bits of media that you get from Star Wars, because it also influences a lot of people's childhood. Some people can even have played the Lego Star Wars games and have that as their introduction to play, to watching Star Wars. Or the Clone Wars TV show can be their introduction. Toys can be people's introduction. There's lots of elements that can surround this fandom, and I think more than any fandom, more than any other. So even things like Marvel, they have TV shows, cartoons. But Star Wars really has embedded itself in culture and has worked on lots of different mediums. So today we wanted to talk about why they work so well in different mediums, especially for myself. I'm quite interested about why Star Wars works so well as comedy sometimes, but also how it works as video games and different types of video games, along with TV shows, as we previously mentioned, that they've been doing recently. Craig, what's have you had experiences with all these different sort of mediums, would you say, or is it just more one type than the other? Or?
So I haven't really engaged much with many of the games, purely just because of the limited amount of devices I've owned in the past. I know extensively about like the storylines of a lot of the games, just because of watching cutscenes on YouTube. But a lot of my engagement tends to come from anything which is more TV or internet based.
Yeah, and what do you think about that aspect of why Star Wars works in so many mediums? Why initially, before we go deep into it, why do you think that is?
Well, it's such an expansive universe that whenever something wants to basically just take a part of that universe and expand it in ways that people haven't seen before, that's why they get involved, right? So, for example, I think the reason that something like the Old Republic games are so popular is because there's such an expansive history of those games that could be explored. I think people just want to like dive in and just do that, right? It's not like a lot of things where in order to get an expanded universe, you have to force the absolute crap out of it. Like it's a massive universe anyway, so it's easy enough in which you're able to just do whatever you want. But also because there's such a corny element to like the original Star Wars, I think that's why it's also easy to just take some of those elements and just take them to absolute comedic extremes.
Yeah, and there's also the aspect of, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So they've already set the precedent to be, this is not restricted by any real world possibilities or timelines. And, we didn't even mention as well that, books, comics, the good thing about the Star Wars universe is there's not tied to any source material. There's George Lucas, obviously, which originally came up with the idea and what he had in mind, but it's always been different writers and contributors add into the expanded universe, etc. Now, that's been made in, expanded universe, and they have their set mythology that they instruct different writers and directors to handle. So whereas Marvel, for example, will have the comic books and people will be like, well, did that happen in the comic books? Like, no, this TV show or movie is new. People will be like, oh, well, I'm not interested. I'm only interested if it's an adaptation of my favorite story. Whereas Star Wars is not tied down like that either. Niall, what's your thoughts on Star Wars' appeal as a big franchise working in different mediums?
Yeah, I agree with everything Craig said, but as well as that, I think an advantage it's always had is for a film series that started in the 70s, it bases itself off so many like classic film genres, like westerns and the samurai films, that when they want to expand it, which they did a lot in the Clone Wars show, which I really admired, like they managed to do a zombie episode using alien brain slugs.
Yeah.
You can, and a Godzilla arc with a giant monster. Anytime it can pay homage to a particular genre, they can fit it in quite naturally. Because they set it up as a sci-fi world, but kind of with magic. They don't call it that, but it's just kind of magic.
Yeah.
There's a funny writer, the guy who does the Zero Punctuation reviews, the video game reviews, once said, if you went through a Star Wars film and replaced the Force with the plot, it really exposes a lot of, you could say, weaknesses or the actual appeal of the series, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I think when they introduced more heavily heavily clear magic with the witches in Clone Wars, obviously they were still saying that it was an aspect of the Force, but they did want to introduce this element of, well, there is magic in Star Wars and a different side of the Force. But it was the first time the fans and viewers were used to terminology like, take this enchanted axe. And I remember watching it, like, I've never heard the word enchanted used in Star Wars. This is very strange to get my head around.
And a little bit of voodoo.
Yeah.
Which I still have mixed feelings on, but it was fun.
Well, Count Dooku went through a rough time in those few episodes. Yeah, when I was recently rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, they used that poison dart on him and sort of blind him for a few hours. And then when I was looking at the other episodes, I was like, oh, and there's the whole burning him above that cauldron thing. I was like, he really does get it quite rough. So yeah,
not even the worst thing that happens to him in the films.
It's very understandable why he wants revenge in the way he does as well. So, like I said, talking about the Clone Wars, the thing that kicked that all off, I think we all probably have, again, different experiences with this film. Like I said, Niall, for yourself, you sort of stepping away from the series at that point, whereas I think for myself, I was in sort of full looking into the mythology of Star Wars mode. Like episode 3 had opened up a lot more doors of, learning more about the Jedi and Order 66 and seeing how that played out in elements. And that then lended itself to games like The Force Unleashed. So the idea with this Clone Wars series was quite interesting. And yeah, the movie came out in cinemas, which was bizarre. And yeah, it was very, very strange at the time. Craig, what was, you saw it sort of later as well, didn't you? So I saw it in the cinema.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to go and see it in the cinema. And I stand by that decision because it just feels incredibly cheap as a film. I'm not going to lie. Seeing where the standards of both storytelling and animation for the Clone Wars is at the moment, going back and seeing that film, Jesus Christ, what the hell was going on?
It's an interesting point to start from because, like we discussed before, it might have been a lot of people's first introduction to the series, but also triggered stepping away from, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and started to really go down that element of let's tell these stories in between films and the mythology, but officially
it didn't tell interesting stories.
Well,
I don't feel.
What, the movie or
the movie?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not talking about the TV show.
No, we'll get onto that. But it was the first time that George Lucas had come out with something that was more, more than just the movies, because he had talked about series for a long time. So it is an interesting place to start off, I think, in that respect, and why the movie came about. So, which I'm willing to defend it for in some aspects, but I didn't rewatch this like Niall did last night. What was your experience, Niall, in rewatching it?
Oh boy. Well, see, the first time I saw the film was a few months before The Force Awakens came out, because I wanted to start watching the Clone Wars show. And I thought, well, that's kind of the first episode in a way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of important because it introduces so many characters. And the first time I saw it, I didn't mind it too much. But rewatching it last night, it's just probably from the benefit of having watched the whole show since, or up to this point anyway.
Yeah.
My God, it's really shocking. Because this is meant to be a film that expands this universe in a way, in a new direction. And the plot is Jabba the Hutt's son has been kidnapped, so all the characters from the films are going to get together. There's so little new in it. Like, obviously, Ahsoka went on to become a really great character. And I know a lot of people didn't like her in this film, but from the hindsight of the show, you see it as a really good introduction. She's kind of impertinent child, and she really grows. And you get to see a bit of Captain Rex, who's brilliant all the time, I will say. But there's just, Craig's right. There's so few ideas. But the cliffside battle is great. I think that is genuinely really cool. I just wish it was done in a better episode or movie.
Yeah, they introduce a lot of elements that would be unique and good about the TV series. But like you said, it was a strange place to start off. I think a lot of it, like I said, the main reason I would defend part of it is because I think that it was made as 4 episodes, 3 or 4 episodes, and then put together as a movie. Obviously, at the time, they were like, oh, it's so good, we want to put it together as a movie. But afterwards, it was kind of said by a lot of the cast and crew that this was the only way to get the rest of the series greenlit and for it to have faith from any TV networks, because nobody wanted to buy it. So I think it's interesting from that aspect that we had to have it in cinemas, because otherwise Cartoon Network wouldn't have bought the series, because there wouldn't have been any interest from, the children and stuff who went to see that film, and the merchandise that would have come out connected to it. So for that, I'm faithful, I'm glad of it. But yeah, obviously, and then I see it same way as you. I kind of see it as the first few episodes, but yeah, as a movie, very strange.
For me, it's not enough for it to defend its quality. It's one of those things where, like, I don't care about the bureaucracy of how, like, TV systems work, because obviously those things to a certain extent don't affect me. All I care about is the products I'm getting. And if they if TV channels genuinely think it's acceptable to just force that upon us as a way of being like, well, you wanted to see, series 4 when Maul is back in the action. This is the only way you're getting it. I'm just like, screw you, TV networks. How dare you do that to us?
Would you
It was a jumbled mess.
Something really surreal is seeing the Warner Bros. Logo at the start of a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, that threw me, yeah.
And I just need to say as well, because I think it's the same guy who did the score for the movie, who later did it for the show. But in this movie, there's so much like terrible rock music over some of the action.
Yeah,
it's just deranged. It feels like a Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah, it's like Kevin Kiner does the music for the entire series, and because it's a digital sort of score that's easy to do for television, again, you would have thought that doing a movie, they would be like, oh, let's get an official orchestra for this now that it's coming out in theaters, not just stick with the original TV score, which is kind of just generic stuff.
There is an extent to which it could have threatened, like, the actual audience for Clone Wars, right? That's one of the reasons why I really won't defend this film, because whenever I talk to people who aren't so engrossed in the entire mythology of Star Wars and just the films, and I mention the TV show, they always mention that bloody film first. Yeah. And I have to go, no, right? Watch the show anyway, because the show is good. And they're just like, well, no, because I got burned once. Why am I going to invest that time? And I'm just like, why couldn't you have made it easier to get people to love this show?
Yeah, I think a lot
Idiots.
of it. What would your feelings, do you think, if they were 4 episodes, say that the movie didn't happen but they were the exact same. It was episode 1, 2, 3 of Jabba being kidnapped, or Jabba's son. How would you feel about it then?
I would feel slightly better because at least I can separate the Battle of Christophsis from the Jabba the Hutt stuff, and then just in future repeats, just skip the Jabba the Hutt stuff.
That's true. Yeah. What would you say now? Do you think it still would have had the same problems if it was as the episodes?
Well, they still would have been probably some very weak episodes, but I feel like if they were designed for TV, they might have been a bit more balanced. Because it did feel for me rewatching it, the fact Anakin needs to fight Count Dooku at the end was probably a decision made because it became a film. They said, "Oh, we need to end on a big lightsaber fight."
Yeah,
and really, it's just weird because it doesn't feel like much time has passed since they last fought, even in the chronology.
Yeah.
And also, it's just become so apparent because I was saying to you earlier, David, that 2 major characters only entered a movie in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the final act is almost exclusively about Padme and Jabba the Hutt's camp uncle and their kind of fight.
Oh, Zero.
Such a strange character. And I said to you as well, Niall, that seeing it in the cinema, there was no glimpse of Zero in any of the advertising. So literally when I came out of the cinema with the person I went to see it with, I just said pretty much what you said. I was like, what was with that weird camp Jabba the Hutt?
I do have one more point because I never noticed this before, is that one of the major plot points of this film is Jabba the Hutt seeing a recording of Anakin Skywalker saying he hates Hutts. I was thinking, like, what is the cancel culture like in Star Wars? Anakin be like brought up for this? Would he be kicked out of the Order? Because it's very racist what he said. He said it to a Hutt baby as well.
Well, it's also, it's got a lot of the elements to season 1 where they clearly listen to people and then change for season 2, 3, etc. Where you get the droids start to get toned down more, so they are more annoying in the movie. And in parts of season 1, whereas they toned that down later. So there's elements like that which they then change later on, but like I said, has still happened earlier. But even when you look at it though as a story, it is strange to think that they sat down and went, we're doing a series about war and the Clone Wars. How do we introduce this series with a storyline about Jabba the Hutt's son being kidnapped? I was like, what? Because to me, they talk about the Outer Rim being essential in this. We need to get the Hutts on our side to secure the Outer Rim. Well, even more so now, watching the newer Clone Wars, they're talking about how the wars spread out to the Outer Rim and Jedi are sort of spread out and fighting different battles. So that makes me question even more why they decided to have, Tatooine be an element of this first few episodes or film, whatever it was planned to be. I would have thought they would have started from somewhere more central and not gone with a baby kidnap story.
Because apparently every Star Wars story needs to somehow revolve around Tatooine. Designed to be this backwater planet is now the most important planet in the universe.
Yeah. And like it makes me laugh with the rest of Clone Wars. And like you said about the forced duel between Anakin and Dooku, it does always make me laugh that he has this. I've been looking forward to this in episode 3, and my powers have doubled since we last fought Count. And I'm like, well, like 2-3 weeks ago, based on probably the timeline of Clone Wars, because you fight a lot during that series. So
it makes sense why his powers constantly double all the time.
Yeah, he's like, I know XP. Yeah. He knows every move.
Like the first time he faces him, my power has increased by 0.16 since last time we faced.
It is a strange starting point. But like you said, Craig, if you're introducing it to people, you can also have the element of, oh, I didn't like that film. He had that stupid Zero the Hutt. Like, well, watch the series and you'll get rewarded for that character, for what happens to them in the end.
It's like good news. Not only will something bad happen to this character, but it will also take another character that people don't like and redeem them.
Yeah, it'll take another ludicrous character and combine them.
I do want to know, like in the whatever is going to come up in future Star Wars shows, I want to see what happens to Jabba's son. Does he get into crime? Does he just go off in a different direction, or does he die?
Yeah, a very strange start to the Clone Wars, but I think we all agreed that the series definitely improves as it goes along. I've been saying on Fresh Take through my reviews, it's better than it's ever been with the current episodes. They are amazing. And I think, again, if you were to show the two films together, if they put together the last few episodes as a movie, you'll see quality-wise, because I think it was also an experiment, and it's not like the movie came from Pixar or DreamWorks. It was a new animation company that Lucas was so personally funding, and they learned a lot throughout the entire series. So you can see how much they learned about lighting and visual effects, and even fight, choreography. In the latest episode, they got Ray Park to do stunts for the Maul Ahsoka fight, and that is one of the most amazing lightsaber fights they've ever done. So I think a lot more people have come on board with, I need to see this series now. Maul is a big draw for that. But also Ahsoka, she's coming into The Mandalorian, so more people might want to watch it because of that. And these last few episodes, I think, will be a big reason for people to want to catch up with it as well. So we were talking as well about how Star Wars works in different platforms and different media. So we mentioned earlier the video games. Battlefront has always been a big staple as to the Star Wars films, but they've had the original Battlefront games, and then EA has sort of adapted them to be more sort of like their Call of Duty films. But that has sort of resurged, especially after they managed to distance themselves from the whole loot pack stuff, and they've given lots of updates, and that is sort of generating a big fan base of people who love to play those games. So Niall, you were talking earlier about the final update that they've released for that game.
Yeah, just a few hours ago, actually, it finally went live. And yeah, because I'm, like you said, it had such a disastrous launch, the latest Battlefront. It's just this horrible money-grubbing scheme.
Yeah.
And, it's this parent company, EA, that you have to feel like did all this. Because from following what the developers have done since, they've really bent over backwards to show a lot of love to this series. Some of the details they put in.
Yeah.
You can play as Ewoks now, which makes it a great game in my mind. And even today, for their final update, they've added the planet Scarif from Rogue One.
Okay, and even with Clone Wars links, they've got the what are they called? The super commando droids, is it? The advanced stealth ones, and they've got the sword, and they can turn invisible and everything. I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, there's you almost wish the game was launching like this, just to imagine where it could have gone with this level of support.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but it ended very well. I'm looking forward to jumping on it later tonight. This isn't an advertisement, by the way.
No.
I just do recommend it. It's a fun game now.
Yeah, definitely. What was the main things they've added in the last update?
Well, the last update, the main thing it's hinging around is Scarif. That's a new map, because the maps seem to be the hardest things to make for them on the scale of them, and they look incredible. They've added a few new skins, including robot legs for old Darth Maul.
Oh, okay. That's
always
nice.
Good to see. And again, some more love to the animated series. It's like a photorealistic version of his Rebels look.
Okay.
Which is really interesting to see. And yeah, even today, one of the developers was actually bemoaning the fact that they have to end support, because he would have loved to have added Ahsoka characters from that neck of the woods.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be interesting, because The Mandalorian will be taking an animated character to see how they look in live action, but a good in-between of that would have been, like you said, a video game version of her, which might have realized her in a more realistic way. But yeah, I think
definitely.
But yeah, I think it's very interesting as well how Battlefront has always worked as a war game as well. Is the fact that it's ironic that it plays a lot like the newer Call of Duty games, but back in the day when they had the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2, that those games didn't have as big a fan bases as they do these days. But people love those original games, and people could probably happily play those without even being Star Wars fans, because they're just fun and there's loads of interesting elements to them. And And even in my mind to this day, I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of the galactic conquest. A planet has been taken, take it back, and all the
watch
little
those
voices.
wrist rockets.
What's that?
Oh yeah.
Was it the watch those wrist rockets? The clones are always yelling before exploding.
Yeah, fighting against the super battle droids.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I remember.
It's funny what you said there about you mentioned people playing these things even if they're not into Star Wars.
Yeah,
because two of my best friends in Ireland actively don't like Star Wars films. It's funny, I'm good friends with them somehow, but they, we come to terms with that. But they love the Star Wars games.
Okay. Yeah,
so I think
interesting.
they really love the world. They just don't like any of the stories in it.
Well, yeah, that because you've had like games in the past as well, like Republic Commandos and Rogue Squadron. So a lot of those games are aiming at those people who like Red Alert and Gears of War. Those type of games that are very sci-fi, war combat based, and a lot of people love those games for those elements. I remember one of my sort of childhood friends, their favorite part of Star Wars was the ships, and they loved playing Battlefront for the space battles, whereas I was more into like the Jedi. And again, that's the good thing about Star Wars, and the good thing about video games is that they can literally go, well, we're going to have this Jedi game, or we're going to have this war game. They can take the different worlds or different elements of Star Wars and make that a dream map for somebody to explore. But yeah, especially with going forward, it'll be interesting because they've said about like comics and books and potentially the movies going into this sort of High Republic era. But during that time, there wouldn't have been Sith because they obviously famously say in Phantom Menace, so they've been extinct for a millennia. So a lot of people say, well, where does the conflict come in? And people say it's called Star Wars. Where is the war? So there always needs to be a war. But a very good opportunity to make good video games is during wars. Craig, have you got good memories of like Battlefront 2?
Yeah, no, Battlefront 2 I love playing to this day. Unfortunately, I don't have my PlayStation 2 anymore. Hashtag Richie, give it back. One of my favorite moments ever playing that game was I was playing the Galactic Conquest mode.
Yeah.
And I was playing as the Republic, so facing the army.
Confederacy of Independent Systems.
Yeah, Confederacy. And I was I was playing on Dagobah, and I was badly losing. I think it got to the point where I was the only soldier left. So if I died, I was going to lose this entire map. And there were like 10 droids just coming after my bases. So I decided to just camp at one base and then just made sure to hide next to like the medical droid. So I was constantly healing.
Yeah.
And every time a droid came, I just sniped the living crap out of the thing. And I managed to win the map. And I just remember my reaction of just like, yes, the lone man stands.
I love that tactic of when you're just standing next to it and it's like the blue wave and you're just like, hey, I'm so clever.
Yeah, that sort of like effect.
One of the things I love most about that Battlefront 2 was I love the campaign, the like war log told.
Yeah.
The Journal of the 501st.
Yeah, Tamura Morrison came back to do the voice acting from the films. And it's like a really good story that I almost wish they could like redo now, almost as its own thing.
Yeah. Canonically, some of it doesn't make sense, but
yeah.
But it was nice at that time to see a link between the clones and the stormtroopers, because I remember as a kid always being like, are they the same thing? And so that helped to sort of bridge that for that time being. But yeah, it that was really impressive.
Because it's funny, because that story implied that all the clones just knew about Order 66 and we're just all keeping it hush.
Yeah.
Which is very funny thinking about it now.
Yeah, exactly. It did appear like that to me in the films, but yeah, I think once the fact they established that the clones were friends with them, then that's where they had to go with the route that they took.
There's a funny moment in a Revenge of the Sith. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
When Chancellor Palpatine calls Commander Cody to tell him Order 66.
Yeah.
So did he have to call everyone individually?
Yeah.
Did
he know
like
the names
call?
of every... Because at that stage, I just thought, oh, Commander Cody must be like the leader of the entire army. And then again, when you watch the series, you're like, oh, well, no. So did he know the names of every single one of them? So what are your guys' feelings on other Star Wars games? We mentioned earlier about Lego Star Wars. That's a big part of people's experiences. I was really intrigued to learn. I don't know if you guys have seen, Hello Greedo, the YouTuber. He wears a Stormtrooper helmet for all his videos. He's been doing like a playthrough of Lego Star Wars, but he never played it. But he said in one of his videos that some people were introduced to Star Wars via those games. But again, I remember loving it because it came out just as Revenge of the Sith came out. And so in a way, I think you could have even played through the game and had Revenge of the Sith spoiled if you didn't already see the film. But I did, so it didn't. But it was the fact that there was elements from that film in a game so close to when that film came out. And just the silly little fun stuff, flying about on Yoda's chair and and having Lego versions of Watto and different Lego characters. It was, and the silly humor of the games. It's always been very near and dear to people's hearts. And it's also interesting that Lego works so well with Star Wars. They've had Lego Indiana Jones, Lego, what other Lego games they have, Batman, but they never seem to work quite as well as those Lego Star Wars games did. And I think the same for the toys in a way as well.
I'm with you on that, because that's when I got into it, was around the time Revenge of the Sith was coming out.
Yeah.
And what a fantastic game for a kid, There's so many characters, and I think the prequel films lent themselves really well to video game levels.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
The droid factory level, the pod racing level. It's a great amount of variation.
Yeah, because I just like the PlayStation 1 games for Phantom Menace. Like the Phantom Menace game, a lot of people have memories for, and the Jedi Power Battles, which, like you said, Phantom Menace makes for great levels. Like, go explore Naboo, go explore, the city and that kind of stuff.
I just have such vivid details of some of the levels in that game, and just some of the ways they have to like twist the story to just make it work for two players.
Yeah,
like some of my favorites are the one level they don't start you with a Jedi, so you're having to like dodge all of these laser blasts. Just basically going, where are the Jedi? I want my ability to deflect these bullets.
Yeah,
but also I remember the level in Episode 3 where Obi-Wan and Yoda go back to the Jedi Temple, and there were just loads of clone troopers just randomly in Jedi robes.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's actually from a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. So
the fact they just put that in, and also have another way in which Shakti dies.
Yes, it's become like, I think I saw a review of one of the newest episodes, and when Obi-Wan says in that Clone Wars episode, like, Shakti has been sent to help the Chancellor, but they've lost contact. The people reviewing it were like, I think that's a nod to the fact that Shakti has so many different deaths in Star Wars universe, but the fact obviously they didn't allude to what happened in that scenario. But yeah, it's also like said, the fact that those Star Wars games then have to show things like death, so they just show the head popping off and funny little things like that.
Oh no, my favorite is when Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon. They just slightly lift his body up from his legs. Although my favorite of all time is still from the Clone Wars episode. It's where Kit Fisto and his old Padawan, I can't remember the name of him. We'll call him Akbar Jr. It's where he runs off right before they're about to fly off. He runs off to fight Grievous. There's like scuffle off camera, and Grievous just throws a fish skeleton back to Kit Fisto. I was like, what the hell?
It's a trap. They have some great humor, and that's what people also love about those games. And also Lego works for the fact that even in terms of Star Wars canon, then Darth Maul does kind of just find a new pair of legs and slides himself back onto them in the end. So yeah, it works for those reasons as well. And they've even I haven't personally watched these, but there's loads of Lego Star Wars cartoons and specials and TV series as well. So, I'm sure they wouldn't have happened without these, original games.
Well, yes, and something that it only struck me there is Lego Star Wars, the prequel one. It launched the entire Lego games franchise. like separately to it being Star Wars, and that's like, God, I dread to think how much money that's made over the years. You know, it's still going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably like, it's definitely gone into the platinum collection of PlayStation 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure that's the version I bought.
Yeah. It's also the fact that those games show off, like you said about Craig, you know, I Need a Jedi, show how different characters work in those worlds. You could have Boba Fett and Jango Fett had little jetpacks, so you could fly around on those, and you needed astromechs for certain situations. And I think later in the games, especially when they had the complete saga, so they put the original and the prequel ones together, it meant that you could sort of form your team of which ones you would flip between. So you could have, like you said, oh, I'll fight, you know, Darth Vader as Kit Fisto, and then I'll flip over to R4, which is Obi-Wan's astromech in Revenge of the Sith, to open this door instead of R2-D2. It was things like that, which as a Star Wars fan, you enjoyed. And I think in that complete saga game, they had a make a minifigure option. And I always remember making an Akbar Jedi and then watching Clone Wars and being like, that's my Akbar Jedi that I made all those years ago.
You must be very proud of what happened to him.
His lightsaber was added to Grievous's collection, so he
died in such a bad way. He just got shot in the stomach.
It's also another, but it does bring me on to another, just a tangent, but another aspect of Star Wars. We'll talk later about the comedy with TV shows, etc. But it's an element of the Lego Star Wars games. But also memes lend themselves really well to Star Wars, and there's some good Star Wars memes out there, which me and Craig probably share with each other daily on our messenger, just because, again, there's just these elements they add to the films which make people laugh. Like in Episode 3 originally, you know, I am the Senate, and you know, a lightsaber to my collection. At the time, people who hated the prequels could say, "Oh, that's so stupid." But look at it now. You know, they've become great sources of humor and parody. I think one I just not long said to you, Craig, was that one where it was a baseball mitt on Grievous's hand, and it was like lightsabers falling down from a situation, and he's there like ready to catch it, like a, you know, with a baseball glove. Yeah,
that's incredibly new because it's Ahsoka's new lightsabers.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid spoilers in case people hadn't seen that, but yeah, Jedi.
What? Ahsoka drops some lightsabers? Oh yeah, massive spoiler. That changes everything I know about the world of Star Wars we're talking about.
I'm gonna skip the next 2 Clone Wars episodes now. What's the point?
Yeah, you know, Ahsoka drops her lightsabers. Why carry on?
Now, probably my favorite meme from Episode 3, and this is probably saying a lot, is that it's where Mace Windu is deflecting the Force lightning and is trying to kill Palpatine, and then it's the scene where Anakin's begging, basically saying, "You shouldn't do this. It's not the Jedi way." And Mace Windu just goes, "Look, if let me break this one rule, I will let you break any rule from the Jedi Order you want. Sound good? Would you allow me to publicly marry the senator and allow her to access medical care for the child that we're raising? That's an oddly specific request, but yes, we would let you do that." And then just end credits come up.
And there's also the amount of great memes you have from the rank of master stuff like that. That's just great. Where did our conversation come from, Craig, the other day about the younglings? Where my hypothetical situation in which the younglings would turn on Anakin?
Yeah, so there's a channel on YouTube. Oh, there are various channels on YouTube, but there's one in particular which I probably won't name because it's unfair and they may come after us, that come up with a load of what-if scenarios, because that's how expansive Star Wars is. You can have a series of what-ifs. Yeah. And they came up with a video which was, what if the younglings killed Anakin?
Yeah, that's it.
And I was like...
And that just made me think of that great line of, "Master Skywalker, there's too many of us. What are you going to do?" I just love the image of that. Him like, what? And them all just igniting lightsabers.
There is a beautiful time right after The Force Awakens came out where they were, you know, pretty much any character who'd appeared in the series beforehand were speculated, are they Snoke?
Yes.
And there was a serious theory behind that little boy.
Just because he had like the same sort of mouth and ears. It was so stupid.
Because he had a face.
Yeah. You know, we talked about elements that did become canon, didn't become canon, and that's why I always appreciated The Force Unleashed when that game came out. Did you play this, Niall?
I think. Do you remember what year it came out? Because I can't remember if it was in my like blank kind of dark spot of my Star Wars fandom. But I think that was actually one of the factors that led up to it.
I think it was about 2000 and Revenge of the Sith was 2005. So I think it was about 2007 or something, because Order 66 is a part of the game and the story, because Vader goes to Kashyyyk, after it's all happened and everything like that. So
yeah, because I remember seeing the trailer for it.
It was 2008.
2008.
Oh, okay.
So it is around the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
The trailer for that really put me off.
Okay.
When he's pulling a Star Destroyer out of the sky.
Yeah.
That's when I got a bit weary because I realized what a lot of Star Wars fans wanted in the series in that way. It's like, that's really not for me. And just that year, it transpired that George Lucas was kind of behind 2 apprentices that Anakin Skywalker had.
Yeah.
That I never mentioned, and I got a bit just tired of it all.
I think my approach to it was the same as with Clone Wars and with the sequels, and I'm seeing these things that I don't like, but I'll stick with it kind of thing. And turned out well, for Clone Wars, turned out well for that game, because like you, I thought that it was annoying to me as a Star Wars fan that they were taking the Force and making it this kind of Dragon Ball Z-esque power in which they could do anything with. And some of the stuff you could do in gameplay, I was like, they were talking about, we're taking the Force to its very limits. And I was like, this seems a bit dumb. And like you said, the apprentice stuff is how many can we really believe that Darth Vader would have had an apprentice? But especially rewatching the cutscenes yesterday, because what really won me over, one, it is a fun game to play. It's cool to have like the combos in which you can have different lightsaber combos and use the Force in with that. I like the fact that he, had the backhanded style of using the lightsaber, which we hadn't really seen in the films as much. And they really made the story work for the timeline they placed it in. So I really loved the fact that they made it so that the Emperor and Vader unknowingly sparked the rebellion. I loved that idea that the villains created the rebellion kind of thing. And when I was rewatching the cutscenes again yesterday, it made me realize how much I loved elements of that, which I would have loved to have seen in future Star Wars films or future Star Wars content. I thought it was really interesting that they have the character Ram Kota, and he's a Jedi, and they say, he survived Order 66 because he never trusted the clones and had his own militia. And I thought, what a great concept. That would have made a great Star Wars arc, Clone Wars arc. You had Maris Brood, which again sticks in line with she is definitely a villain. Her name is Maris Brood. She's got black hair and is like pale white, and Shakti is still there like, you can't fall to the dark side, young one. I'm like, she's clearly going to fall to the dark side. Look at her. But again, she had the sort of baton lightsabers, and so you had lots of different playing with the world, but in cool ways. And they didn't take it too far in my mind in the end, because they made it work for the story. So they had the character called Starkiller. They had it be so that he was Vader's apprentice, but the only reason he was Vader's apprentice was just to be a part of that whole there's only 2 rule in which they always will want to overthrow their master. And then that turns out to actually just be a ploy by the Emperor to weed out, Vader's apprentice and weed out the rebels. So it just was a very clever story, and I loved how it set things up for the future, for A New Hope, etc., which is probably why I didn't enjoy things like Rebels as much, because I'm like, no, this is the way I preferred that it started. And I just thought there was some really cool stuff in there. And I didn't play the second one because I heard some generic stuff about it, so I just didn't want to sort of spend the money on it. But when I watched the cutscenes of that, there's a scene where I think it's Juno Eclipse is his girlfriend's surname.
I did want to point out her because that is an amazing name.
Yeah.
They need to reintroduce her to canon just to get that name back in there.
Yeah. But also, again, like having a good character with a good love story, like, their relationship and their story was really good. And at one point she's passed out and they're like, oh, she's dead. And, the character says that she's gone. And then he kisses her and she comes back to life. I was like, there you go. Force healing was there before Rise of Skywalker when people were talking about, that's not how the Force works. I'm like, well, it was in that game as well.
David.
But yeah, I really like that aspect, and it's unfortunate that it's not canon now. And there were loads of people in the comments of those cutscenes that were saying, I wish we got this as the story in the future. And Lucasfilm knows that this is a better movie than they come up with, etc., etc. But yeah, I really liked it, and I like the touches that they make. I like what Sam Witwer said to Ashley Eckstein when they were making Clone Wars as well. I think when he came on to play the brother in the Mortis arc, he said, oh, it's really cool. We've both played Padawans of Vader, and we both have a backhanded lightsaber style, because Ahsoka has it too. And I was like, I like that touch as well. That's cool. But obviously, his character is no longer canon. But oh well.
I know they were considering bringing him back as an Inquisitor in Rebels at one point.
Oh yeah, that would have worked.
And I can see them deciding not to do that because they'd probably want to elaborate on him more. So I could see him come back, especially because Sam Witwer is their favorite child.
Yeah.
They just need to depower him a lot.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that Starkiller could do were just ridiculous. And I think, especially when you look at, say, the Dark Side DLC that came for it as well, some of the things that, like, the Sith Stalker version of Starkiller could do were just ridiculous.
Well, I think...
he can literally destroy the Force because he's able to kill Obi-Wan's Force ghost. And it's like, what?
Yeah, they would have to tone it down. I think I liked as well, though, the element, because I think I remember hearing about him coming in as an Inquisitor. But again, to me, I thought, well, it would make sense. But that's why I like that Force Unleashed story, is that I like the idea of Vader just sending out this lone assassin to take out the last dregs. I never quite got on board or liked the Inquisitors very much. I didn't like the idea of Vader having sort of like an army of people. I know there are only about 10 of them, but still, I just always liked the idea when you were growing up of, Vader killed all the Jedi, where it's like, well, if he had this big team of people, he didn't really,
Well, it depends how distant you want to get from it. Like, he trained them, so from a certain point of view.
Exactly. I think it just comes down to the element of then, well, how many people were going around with lightsabers during this time in which, like I said, the Jedi were meant to be extinct and that kind of thing as well, which then I struggle with. And just the fact that apparently they can travel by helicopter lightsaber, which I just think is goofy.
Right. Okay. I think that's an unfair reason to just hate on them. Like, granted, that bit is stupid, but I think the actual concept of the Inquisitors, especially, let's be fair, this is an empire, right? That, like, Inquisitions are things that empires do. So I think it actually, for me, I much prefer, like, the idea of the Inquisitors over just Vader having, like, an apprentice, because you're always going to have that element of just, like, well, he's going to die, and, like, is Vader really going to fight the Emperor? As opposed to just like, okay, the Emperor is just on board with this little band of Force sensitive murderers. Yeah. Especially when you see like how they basically get people to become Inquisitors, which you see a little bit of in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
The way in which they convert people is just horrifying, and it's a nice little touch. I think it won me over to the way the Inquisitors think, because it's basically just torture.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I do have a sort of back and forth with the characters, and I did enjoy the fact that Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think she was like one of the strongest ones that they had in the Rebel series. But then I just found it weird that then she was just always with that sort of generic, bulky one. I was like, well, make them cool, proper characters if you're gonna do that. But like I said, I haven't played Fallen Order yet, so I know that they're an element in that. But you've seen content from that, Craig. Is it just the one Inquisitor that's mainly in that then, or?
Two. So
okay.
I got to get this right now. So the second sister is like the primary antagonist.
Yeah.
But they also have the ninth sister, who's I don't know what species she is, but she's like the big, bulky, like dinosaur-looking one.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, because
So just go on.
The seventh sister is the one that's in Rebels, I think, isn't it?
Yes, the seventh. Yeah, if you had to push me, I could actually tell you numerically. Yeah, because in Rebels, you see the seventh sister. No, you see the fifth brother, the seventh sister, and the eighth brother.
Right, okay.
Basically, they're essentially hunting the main character, Cal Kestis, who is an apprentice who survived Order 66, and it's basically him essentially coming back into the Force and just getting used to his abilities again, and just rising up to this position of just becoming a Jedi, essentially, after years of hiding. Like, the story of it is pretty good. It does a lot to build on a lot of the mythology of Star Wars. There are just lots of elements I like. I don't know how much spoilery territory you want me to go in, David, but I mean, the fact that they just some of the planets they visit, and they actually like go over some details that you physically see in Clone Wars, which is good that they bring that in. They mention planets that come up in both Force Awakens and Last Jedi, which is quite cool.
Yeah, I know there's a Dathomir, an ex-Dathomir Night Sister in it, I think, is there one?
Okay, so I could talk about Merrin, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Merrin. They decide to Yeah, I mean, they randomly give her an accent, and I don't know why that won me over. But
it was kind of Russian accent, I think, was it?
Yeah, slightly Ukrainian, I feel.
Because Mother Talzin, like the head witch from the show, she spoke very Romanian kind of dialect.
Well,
silly but good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she had
basically the Dracula sort of.
Yeah.
And they always had that cool effect with her with the doubled up voice. I always loved that element of her voice, that it was so echoing with the dark voice. I always wondered, did they sort of just double up the same dialogue, or did the voice of a woman recorded twice? Kind of thing? Obviously, they would have manipulated it, but
yeah.
She just talks like that.
Yeah,
that's why she never does chat shows.
Well, it's the same woman who voiced Rita. Yeah, it is voiced Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So she's got a knack for doing fun villains, but yeah, two very different voices.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I almost had played Rita, but I was like, no, she didn't. Like, it's very clear that she wasn't there saying the lips, because it's notoriously not in sync with
didn't she play it from like season 2 onwards, or was that someone different again?
No, they still just brought in a generic actress and then just got her to voice over a generic actress doing it. Niall, you mentioned about the Ewok specials. Like I said, another strange aspect of Star Wars is their spin-offs. I mentioned earlier about the holiday special, which is infamous, but a lot of people as well have memories of the Ewok TV movies. They've become also notorious for being just bizarre. What's your experience with them?
Well, first I'll just say, ever since I saw Return of the Jedi when I was a kid, I've always liked Ewoks. I've never fallen out with them. I know they were a sticking point for a lot of people when it first came out. And I think that's a result of maybe taking it a bit too seriously.
Yeah.
Because the beautiful thing about Star Wars is it's this big grand narrative, good versus evil, but it's also very silly at heart.
Yeah.
And I think the Ewoks like exemplify that quite well, whereas I'd say like maybe Jar Jar went too far.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on Jar Jar, but he is what he is. So I've got my Ewok movies.
Oh, nice. See, I saw that on the shelf as a kid and was kind of freaked out by... Is it Wicket on the cover of it? I was like,
it is Wicket looking.
Yeah.
Oh my
He's seen some things.
After the Battle of Endor, he got hooked on all sorts. Get over the PTSD.
Yeah. You just watched that explosion in the sky like, oh my God.
So these were made for TV after Return of the Jedi. And it's really unclear when they're meant to be set. Because they don't really match up with the films at all in tone or content. So the first one is about the Ewoks, led by Wicket, finding 2 children abandoned on Endor. and going on a strange, like really budget Lord of the Rings style quest to reunite these kids with their parents who've been kidnapped by the Gorax, which is a giant stop motion monster. And yeah, I will say the first one is really boring. Unfortunately, it's got its charms because it's so odd. You get to see Ewoks riding horses.
Planet of the Apes style.
not even like fake Star Wars horses, just literal farm animals are in this movie a lot. And they go on this boring adventure and reunite them, whatever. But it's the second one that's way more interesting. Because this family, who they spent the entire first movie getting back together, are all murdered except for one in the first 10 minutes of the sequel.
Oh, wow.
Because a gang of alien marauders invade Endor for no particular reason other than to take over Endor. Yeah. Led by one
moon,
of them.
Not the main planet, but the moon is what we're after.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the forest moon of Endor.
Yeah.
There's lots of natural resources, which is nice. Yeah, a gang of alien marauders murders most of them, enslave a lot of Ewoks. And so Wicket and the little girl who survived go on a quest to free all the Ewoks from the castle that they've taken over. Not built. The castle's already there on Endor. And they encounter Wilford Brimley from The Thing and many other films. Is a very old, cantankerous man living in a hut on Endor with a monkey, a weird monkey creature that can run really fast.
Okay.
And then they all team up to free the Ewoks. Oh, and there's also a witch who can turn into a crow.
Of course.
Which you always need to throw in at the end of a plot description. It's really stunning how crazy the sequel is compared to the boring first movie. And honestly, it is quite entertaining, the second one.
It sounds a bit like Willow.
It's got a lot of that, yeah. There's a certain 80s charm to it.
Yeah. And like knights and witches and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's fairies.
Oh.
These little sprites who help, who they actually who are actually in Battlefront 2. They're one of the Ewok squad mates' weapons, is you can throw like a jar of fairies to kill people.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Because obviously we were talking about witches in Star Wars earlier.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff in the Ewok films they're harder to reconcile. A woman turning into a crow is there's a little bit of that in the Mortis arc.
Yeah.
But obviously I don't think those two things are related.
I was going to say, if she's secretly like a being of the Force, that is a lot to take in.
It really is.
That's what I thought when you said fairies. I was like, if it comes from the place of magic in Star Wars, which is Dathomir, that would be hilarious. Dathomirian pixies.
And there's just all little things like that, because you're not sure if at this point the Ewoks are meant to have beaten the Empire or this is years before. Because by Jedi anyway, if the Ewoks see humans, they want to eat humans. Which makes me really worry what happened to the little girl in case that is what happened.
Yeah. And even R2 apparently. They're like, yeah, we'll cook him up too.
Who knows? And Wicket learns a bit of English, which is really distressing, to be honest.
Is he actually played by, I was thinking this earlier, is he actually played by Warwick Davis?
Warwick Davis, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think he's the only cast member who links these.
So he has officially appeared in every form of Star Wars media then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to alienate the two of you too much. Cause have you seen any of this?
I think Craig's the same as me. I've seen a review of it, so elements of it are ringing a bell where somebody was ripping into it from the review. I think, Craig, you're the same maybe? Or
No, I have no knowledge of this whatsoever.
Oh, okay. I don't know which review I saw then. I thought it was somebody that we both watched, but yeah. So yeah, Craig is completely like, what are you talking about?
So at least one of you can confirm I'm not making all this up. That's the important thing.
Yeah, no, I remember this person talking about that scene in which the actor from The Thing is there and they were just like, what is this? What am I watching? He's just there like this hillbilly in a cabin kind of just sat there.
Because this is, aside from the holiday special, it's the first time Lucasfilm took television seriously, really, as a storytelling format. Because I know they did Ewok and droid cartoons around the same time. So it's fascinating to see where it's come.
Yeah.
Sorry, Niall. Did you just say this is the first... After describing that entire plot to us, did you just then say this is where LucasArts started taking TV seriously?
Well, money-wise.
As a potential...
But, they put money in to make 2 feature films about Ewoks,
Okay, that beautiful cop-out argument. Okay, fine.
And hey, the family getting murdered is really fun. Clone Wars wishes it could get as dark as the Battle for Endor.
Yeah, true.
Not to get confused with Battle of Endor.
But also just the other one always confused me though. Was it Caravan of Courage?
Caravan of Courage.
I was like, what? As a child who used to have a caravan in West Wales, I was like, are we talking about the same type of caravan?
I think caravan also means like a fellowship or something, I was confused too.
Caravan is also the song played in the finale of Whiplash. To be fair, you need a lot of courage for that, so maybe...
Yeah.
Oh, that also plays in the credits of this.
Wait, what?
No, I'm joking. I'm sorry. I had to throw in one lie.
Okay, that might have been enough to swing me if that were true.
I would recommend, I suppose, if anyone's like into Star Wars to a degree, they'll watch it as like even a hate watch. So I don't hate these. I'm fascinated by them. Just to see what happened.
Kind of reminds me of maybe because I saw them on the shelf at the same time, but going into that level of TV, of low budget TV, kind of like the Narnia BBC series they used to do, because that had some terrible effects and elements to it as well. So it seems like that kind of era of the 80s in which they were just making badly budgeted fantasy on television, but had its fan base.
I didn't want to give the impression though that these had bad effects, to be honest, because they are still Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
a lot of work did go into the effects.
Oh, okay.
They're not movie quality, but for TV at the time, they're actually pretty good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I suppose that was just a automatic judgment I made on the part of it. But
the costumes are creepier. I don't know why the costumes are creepier.
Yeah, I think I must have got it from that creepy Wicket thing on the DVD cover. But yeah, it's an interesting period of Star Wars to look at. But like you said, it does open up the aspect of being open about Star Wars having its flaws and strange times. And like you said, you wouldn't necessarily call it bad. You think it's really fascinating, and that's how people will see the holiday special as well. And even in The Mandalorian, they have a line, I get ready for Life Day. So, they take note of all that has come before, and definitely the fans find it fascinating when you do get something bad. And I think it's interesting as well, because we were talking about Star Wars with TV, how it does also relate to this aspect of seeing the light in dark moments. So obviously the family dying, I'm assuming, is not played for laughs in the film, but
no,
but it is actually kind of funny, like that they went there. But it also reminds me of the Robot Chicken sketch, which is the realistic depiction of the Death Star destruction, in which literally then rain of fire just comes down on the moon of Endor, killing all the Ewoks, because that's what would have happened if it was scientifically correct. So, that's another element we wanted to bring up, was Robot Chicken. But was there anything else you wanted to add on Ewoks, Niall?
Anything else I want to add on Ewoks? I honestly could have been talking about Ewoks for the entire podcast. I have a strange fascination with them. Not really, other than the fact it's funny you said that about Robot Chicken and the idea of the shrapnel landing on Endor.
Yeah.
Because I think at one point an EU comic tried to make that canon. And because there was a strange thing, and even in Force Unleashed, I know there was a mode where you could kill the Ewoks.
Yeah.
There's just a part of the Star Wars fandom mentality I've never liked, is when they don't like something. It's like, oh, it's got to get it. I want to violently kill them.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that has led to why it's quite toxic to talk about Star Wars in a lot of places on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, Ewoks, they're silly little cannibalistic weirdos, but I think they fit into the series quite well.
Yeah, because George Lucas's original vision was that it was going to be Wookiees, but they were too expensive. But he wanted this idea of a primitive species being able to take down the Empire. So that's what I always took from it. I never kind of saw it as too cutesy. There is like they cut to a baby Ewok at some point, but at the same time they also show Ewoks dying and one of them tragically shaking the other and accepting that their friend has died. So that
is, because people say the Ewoks are the low point of that trilogy. That is also probably the one moment in the entire original trilogy where they treat war seriously at all.
Yeah.
It's a funny dichotomy, and that's what I've always enjoyed about Star Wars.
And it's the same with Jar Jar in a way, is that, as much as people hated him, they still take that character and try to make the best of the situation. So like the, Darth Jar Jar theory and, Clone Wars brought that up by having the sort of coming back to Darth Vader as a vision and having Palpatine ring him and apologize. And he's like, I think you mentioned it, wasn't it, Craig? Was like, oh yeah, user betrayed me, sure.
Why did you say Clone Wars? That's not Clone Wars, that's Robot Chicken, David.
No, sorry, but yeah, it was when we were talking about theories, though, you mentioned that moment in the Darth Jar Jar. I think that's what's interesting with Robot Chicken is that, again, it links in with Clone Wars to me in that it's made by fans and fans would only understand certain jokes or maybe even all of the jokes. I don't think you just show somebody who's never seen Star Wars the Robot Chicken specials and they would understand what the hell is going on. And that's what I love about them. I think that they're the best Star Wars humor there is because they play so much on your understanding of that world and just the little nuances, like, the debris fall into Endor, etc. But also encompassing all of the franchise as well. I just love how, they go there. They have stuff on the prequels, the originals. And you were saying yourself, Niall, about, you never sort of quite enjoyed like Family Guy. So the Family Guy specials weren't as much on your radar. So, but the Robot Chicken ones are one you sort of saw. So, what was your main reason for sort of seeing one and not the other, or liking one and not the other kind of thing?
Well, I think it's always, I like the way that the Robot Chicken ones, they are like the Star Wars characters pretty much, but heightened to a point to be funny. I suppose in Family Guy, it's like, oh, Peter Griffin is Han Solo or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't really want to hang out with Peter Griffin.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's no offense to them because I think Family Guy can be funny at times. It's just not my bag. Whereas I do find Robot Chicken consistently very funny. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, their series in general is great. So to combine those two things is even better. And
there's an element of the Lego Star Wars thing going on as well, because Robot Chicken had been going on for years before the Star Wars stuff. But obviously merchandise and the action figures have always been the bread and butter. So seeing that animation style works really well. It's like a very natural fit from an aesthetic level. Yeah,
because when you see the Grievous, I think it's like the sketch where Grievous is like a car wash person, you're like, oh, it's the Grievous action figure, and it's the Darth Maul action figures. So it's fun that you've got the actual toys being used, etc. And yeah, and then it's the fact that they can also go from one extreme to the other. They can have this very in Star Wars sort of situation or joke, and then they can also have Admiral Akbar cereal or My Little Tauntaun. They can also go to that extreme pop culture sort of outside of Star Wars space of, just imagine if there was TV and TV adverts in Star Wars and blended in with our world. So it's probably the only time that you really see that as well, which is always funny.
For me, I just love elements of how they write some of the sketches. I just love the fact that they'll often just fixate on such like a small line in the context of the films and just overblow it to such a degree.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite sketches is still the "I have altered the deal, pray I don't alter it any further," and it's just Darth Vader coming back with just ludicrous demands like, "You will now wear this tutu and call yourself Nancy." It's just like this deal's getting worse all the time, but just eventually, like Lando just loses. Like, I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it. Not to mention the fact there's also the utterly brilliant high ground sketch.
Yeah, that's just amazing. And like I said, High Ground has become obviously a meme in its own, but again, it takes comedians like Robot Chicken to then take it to a new level themselves.
Yeah.
Take it to the high ground.
And it was for Robot Chicken that George Lucas was actually quite involved, was it? Or am I confusing it with Family Guy?
He did have that cameo in the sketch with the nerd character, so sees him at a Star Wars convention. Yeah. So yeah, he probably did have that sort of involvement. And
there's a great behind the scenes joke video I think they did with him and Seth Green in a writer's room. And Seth Green brings up marriage aids or something from the EU, and George Lucas loses his mind. He's like, get out.
It's also just, though, like Craig said, that they take such small lines, but I also like the idea that they also go, well, that was happening, but what happened with this other character? So I just love the idea of, like, you similar to the, I've altered the deal, but I think in the extended version of that episode, they then show Darth Vader and Boba Fett trapping Han Solo, etc., in that dinner room, and then you pan to another room in which IG-88 is like set up this similar banquet, and then Boba just rings him like, oh, sorry, I got there first. And then it's just IG-88 just like scrapping the entire thing and just like crying to himself. And I think there's a similar one with this, again, dark humor, but something that Star Wars fans would appreciate is the Greedo answer machine one, where his mum just rings Greedo's place. Is like, Greedo, you haven't been around in a long time. I'm getting concerned. You weren't here for Sunday dinner. And it's like, oh, there's an ad for a bounty hunter job. I thought you might be interested. It just shows his apartment's been abandoned.
My favorite dark sketch is still Crate Dragon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's just a small detail, such as just the skeleton of a creature, and they just decide to overblow it, being like, I want to go exploring. I know there's more out there than just this oasis. It's like, no, it is a literal desert. You will die. It's like, I don't believe it.
And touches on that element of Star Wars of like, oh, let's have planets filled with this. So then they make the joke of like, there can't be a planet of just ice and just lava. But there is. Yeah, there's many like great sketches in Robot Chicken. Me and Craig went through them once and just tried to definitely give our like top 10. And I think like our favorites, like our top 3, High Ground came into the Palpatine phone call, which has become famous, and Dr. Ball, which I think I mentioned in our Star Wars Saga episode, which again, taking a small moment but also combining it with that element of pop culture stuff, the idea that Dr. Ball would then have his own MD practice TV show.
Yeah.
Is there any others that sort of stand out to you now in terms of their sketches?
I'll just throw my favorite one in. Yeah. It's from It Fills in the Blanks on Cloud City when they see Vader at the table. He's oh, join me for dinner or something sarcastic, and it shows the dinner party. They have it. It's just tremendously awkward.
Yeah, I think that's the bit that the IG-88 sort of like stems on from. But yeah, it's the fact that he's just like sat there with Leia and it's a bit awkward. And yeah, that was
and you've got Han Solo and Boba Fett just doing inventive middle finger gags to each other.
Like we said, it just goes to show why the humor works. It's such an expansive world. It's so embedded in our pop culture. People know the world, the characters. It's not coming from any source material. And yeah, it works because of that ability to have a humor and to look on the bright side of things and the lighter side, but also with the video games to go into the elements that people really love, like dark elements, war. There's loads of different elements, and that's why I think people do say when they talk about like it being a toxic fandom is that people can say, well, it's a very broad fandom, and they are that group, but there are lots of different types of Star Wars fans, and that can be seen in the fact that you've got prequel lovers, sequel lovers, original trilogy, what would you call them, purists, that they all love their element, and these elements can come into it as well. People who just love the games or just love the Clone Wars, which we've talked about as well, is that people we know that just solely like those. Like me and Craig mentioned, like a friend we have who loves that Robot Chicken sketch, but is not really a Star Wars fan, but he loves the coffee Death Star joke we mentioned, and the Yoda one. So it has a broad appeal in many different aspects. And yeah, so please on May 4th, go check out these more bizarre, strange sides of the Star Wars galaxy. They might not all be on Disney Plus. Like I said earlier, now the Warner Brothers logo does appear before the Clone Wars movie, but I
think that is on there, actually.
Yeah, it is on Disney Plus. I'm assuming they've taken that logo away. I think it's because they sort of bought it off.
Warner Bros. Probably just don't want it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it would have been a part of the deal they had when they sort of bought the series from Cartoon Network. Because
this deal's getting worse all the
time. So yeah, guys at home, please tell us your favorite Star Wars spin-offs, your favorite element of Star Wars, why you think it works so well on such a broad, wide appeal, and why it sometimes works for comedy and video games.
All right then, endgame time. So today's endgame is simply called In Space, No One Can Hear What You Are. So the idea of this game is that one of the facets of the entire universe that I love are the weird and wonderful sound effects that are often used throughout both the films, the TV shows, and the games. So this is basically a little homage to that. So I've got a couple of clips of various sounds used within mostly the films. And basically, fastest person first, I want you to tell me what that sound is. However, some of the clips are simply imitations of those sounds. You'll get a bonus point if you can tell me what the sound actually is.
Okay.
So, for example, like where somebody is like trained a parrot to do the sound of like R2-D2.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, if you think the sound I'm playing is that, I want you to tell me.
Okay. So tell me what the sound effect is and whether it's from Universe or not, kind of thing.
Yes. So before that, I'd like to hear your buzzers. So David, your sound is going to be... And Niall, your sound is going to be... Okay, are we ready for clip number 1?
Yes.
This is not very long, so here we go. That was David.
The TIE Fighter, sorry, no, AT-AT Walker blaster from Star Wars.
Do I take his first answer first, is the question?
In my mind, I was generally thinking the latter.
I'll be nice and accept the answer you wanted to give, which is an AT-AT blaster.
Yeah.
David, you are? That was indeed an AT-AT, and I think you've already answered that it's the real one.
Yeah.
So that's 1 point to David.
Were you going to say the same, Niall?
I was going to say the same.
What Niall was actually going to say... Niall was actually going to say AT-AT immediately and not think TIE Fighter. Okay, sound effect number 2. Again, I believe that was David.
So that is Ben turning off the shields or tractor beam of the Death Star.
I can only accept one of those. Is it shields or tractor beam?
Tractor beam. Tractor beam.
One day, David, your indecisiveness is going to cost you points. But yes, in that situation, that was the power down of the tractor beam. Excellent. Now for number 3.
Oh.
Yet again.
That is the Droideka blaster from Star Wars. Oh.
Yep, it was indeed the Droideka. I'm going to be nice. Now, for a bonus point, what are they colloquially known as by the Republic Army?
Destroyers?
Yeah, they're also known as destroyers, so I'm giving Niall a point for that. Because I want to make sure that David doesn't just sweep this. Excellent.
Well, It's close every time we buzzed. It's been very close.
Okay. Clip number 4. That one was Niall.
That is, I believe, something doing an impression of a Wookiee.
I think I know what's doing.
Do you want to be
impression.
more specific than a Wookiee, or
Of Chewbacca.
Yep, that was indeed a Chewbacca. What do you think it is?
Would I be able to hear it again?
Yep, absolutely.
It sounds like a something closing and rubbing against the floor, like a big door or something.
Okay, so you think it's something, you think it's like a door closing, rubbing against the floor.
Yeah.
So that answer is, it's not a door closing. David, do you have any idea what this is?
Is this that video of the can being dragged across the table and it's like Chewbacca on the can because it's like a Star Wars branded can?
So you think it's a can?
Yeah, on a table. Oh.
This was a very popular. This was a very popular craze called chair barker. That was a chair being dragged across the floor. So Niall had the right concept, but not the right item.
I thought it was friction.
Yeah, it was exactly friction, but it was a kitchen chair. So one of the chairs you'd eat like at an island. But like David said, it had the picture of Chewbacca.
Yeah, I had chair in my mind first, but then the can thing came in my head. So
yeah, so that was in contention, but the can just doesn't sound as close to a Wookiee. So excellent. Number 5. David.
That is me when I wake up in the morning. No. That is a Jawa in Star Wars A New Hope. Oh.
Yep. So I tried to pick the most karate sounding noises it was making as possible, but yeah, that was indeed a Jawa. If it had gotten to the end of the clip, I actually kept in the famous Houdini, whatever that is.
That's what makes me laugh about when he springs up on R2-D2 in the film is the fact that he goes, ah, and I'm like, why?
Okay. Clip number 6. That was Niall.
Is that Wat Tambor messing with his dial in Attack of the Clones?
It was indeed Wat Tambor.
I hate that I know that.
It's because you went to the cinema and you loved robots as a child.
So here is the entire clip.
The Techno-Union Army is at your disposal, Count.
Can I ask if that clip where they used that for humor purposes is in this at all?
No.
Okay, so I could bring up the person who took that and had him make techno music as a DJ.
Yeah.
Like, do.
I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot about that, but yeah, that was amazing.
That is great. But I can't believe that this guy, in the middle of this meeting that was about to dictate an intergalactic war, started playing with himself. He's such a jerk.
He never does it again either.
Oh, he gets what's coming to him. Okay, time for clip number 7. This is probably my favorite clip. Actually, no, it's not. It's just what I think is the most therapeutic clip.
Oh.
I hear David.
Is it the...
I want the exact name of this, by the way.
Oh, God. So I'm going off, I think, what Obi-Wan says. Is it seismic charges?
It was a seismic
I was
charge.
going to say, like, sonic blast or whatever. When you said that, I was like, oh.
Question, Niall, would you have gotten seismic charge?
Yeah.
It's from his favorite film, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. Okay. Time. Okay. You do realize you need to listen to the clip first before you can answer.
I was just moving my hand.
Okay. Clip number 8. That was Niall.
That is the dog that can do the TIE Fighter impression.
Yeah, that was indeed one of my favorite videos, which is Geraldine Loves Star Wars. So basically uploaded by Andrew Saunders, is basically being reunited with his dog Geraldine, who starts making the noise of a TIE fighter. Here is an extended clip for everyone to enjoy.
Hi, Geraldine.
See, all I hear when I hear that is that scene where they go through the meteors and like there's one like spiraling out of control. So
Yeah,
I heard it and was glad I waited because I would have just said TIE Fighter.
As soon as you described this round, I knew that would come up.
Oh, good.
I've been sitting on Geraldine.
The moment I heard it, I fell in love. So, and also, unfortunately, that was my last clip. So at the end of that, both competitors are on 5 points.
Oh.
So we have a tie-break scenario, which I actually prepared for today.
Oh.
So, what I have for you is a numerical question. What I want you to do is I want both of you to write down your answer, and the closest one to it wins the end game.
Okay.
Okay, so do either of you have like pen and paper ready, or like just write it on the phone, just so I know that you're not just trying to Price is Right it? Perfect?
Yes.
So here is your question. When you add up the amount of main series games, excluding bundle packages, including bundle packages, and mobile and web browser based games, how many Lego Star Wars games have there been? So when you add up the amount of main series games that they've released, as well as the amount of mobile and web browser games they've also released, how many Lego Star Wars games have there been?
I assume when you say bundles, you don't mean like DLC or anything, though.
No. Yeah, so at first I was going to exclude the complete saga, but actually I'm now going to allow the complete saga.
Does this count? This is just released ones, is it?
Upcoming is also fine. Included in this, I should say.
Oh, and I was going to ask, does this count, say, if it came out on multiple platforms, that's still just one?
Oh, yeah, if it's multiple platforms, it's only the one game.
Cool.
Like I said, it's whoever gets the closest to this will take the game.
Mm.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Do we reveal them at the same time, or?
Okay,
we've written them down, I suppose, so we know them.
Yeah, I just don't want to see furious scribbling on your desk when Niall reveals his. So, on the count of 3, both reveal your numbers to me on screen. 3, 2, 1, go.
8.
David has gone 8. Niall has gone 12. So neither of you have got the exact answer, but the actual answer is 14, which means Niall, in today's game, you have won. Congratulations.
I won the Star Wars.
Yeah. As soon as Craig said about the You're like, oh, we talking different platforms. Craig was like, oh, as close as you get to the actual answer. I was like, I'm pretty sure Niall's got this based on that, asking that question.
Yeah. So there were six. So there are six main series games when you include the complete collection, and there are 8 mobile and web browser based games.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was safer to assume there's a lot of them because I don't know any of the web ones. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I only knew because of a look on Wikipedia, so I can't claim to be an expert. But Niall, congratulations! You have destroyed David's reign of beating guests on the endgame.
Yeah, it's nice to have a guest
I'm the chosen
in the
one.
game for a while. Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, how do you feel?
I feel like I brought balance to the podcast. It's the prophecy foretold.
Yeah.
That was fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
It's just whether somebody else will come along and also bring balance, but just not as well. It's like you'll have your voice playing over the top, like bring balance as I did.
Well, it's going to be, David, when we thought you've been dead for a long time.
Yeah.
Just show up in the chat on a gurney.
Yeah, that's it. Just like we'll have 2 guests, and I'm like, oh, a triad. This has not been seen in such a long time. It powers me. The long forgotten Oscar will be found. Well, yeah, thank you guys for that very fun end game. And Niall, thank you for joining us today in our very different talk about Star Wars. It's nice to talk about something other than movie, main staple movies and big franchises, films. Where can we find you? What socials and other stuff have you been working on?
At the moment, I'm working on a few reviews. I'm working on a secret podcast that I'm hoping to have up at the end of the month. Its first episode, anyway.
Oh, okay.
But I want to wait till it's just a bit closer to that to go into any great detail on it.
Yeah, we'll share it on socials when it is up anyway.
Oh, yeah. You can find me at Niall Le Glynn on Twitter, and that way you can find any reviews I do for Fresh Take or any reviews or streams I'm doing for Game Air.
Awesome.
And yeah, and if you watch the Ewok movies and have a bone to pick with me, or not, please do talk to me about the Ewok movies.
Or if you do come up with an answer for that director question. But
whatever that website was, if they get the answer, hit me up.
Yeah. Or if they want to talk to you about cats. You are a Jellicle cat now.
That's a whole other discussion.
Oh dear God.
When you want to talk about cats for any particular reason, hit me up.
Well, thank you, Niall. And yeah, everyone at home as well, you can catch us as usual at Well Good Movies on Instagram and Facebook. You can also catch us on Fresh Take Hub on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. And yeah, keep an eye out on our website, like Niall said, for reviews and articles that we are all working on. He has just done the BoJack look back, which was very fun. And yeah, we'll have lots more up on the website, LinkedIn with May the 4th, which is Mandalorian reviews and Clone Wars reviews as well. And yeah, we'll have to get some sort of like let's play streaming thing going on, where we all play the same game. That'd be fun. But yeah, thanks guys. Anything else from yourself, Craig?
Nope, just may the force be with you.
Exactly.
Always.
And yeah, have a good May the 4th, everybody. May the force be with you, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you then. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Mhm.